Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Health Hustle Chronicles, where the grind meets growth in the world of healthcare. As you know, this ain't your typical podcast because I bring you some of the freshest, some of the livest guests from around the world. Craig. And today we have a very special guest who goes by the name of Amber Bardon. She's the founder and the powerhouse CEO of Parasol Alliance, a full-service managed technology provider that dominates the senior living industry. Under her leadership, Parasol Alliance has become a game changer, consistently ranked amongst the top 501 managed IT service providers in the world for 6 consecutive years, including an incredible number 4 global ranking in 2022. Amber's vision and relentless drive has built an award-winning culture across multi-state virtual workforce, earning her the prestigious title of Best and Brightest CEOs in the nation in 2024. Listen, everybody put your hands together. Let's welcome Amber to the stage.
Thanks, Patrick. I'm so excited to be here. What an amazing introduction.
Man, listen, I didn't have to do anything but read your bio. It's all you. Like we're talking about 2022 number 4 global ranking. You're already a leader in the tech space, specifically for senior living, and one of the best and brightest CEOs in the world. So I'm happy to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you.
Your bio is fire. So I think there's no better way for us to start than personal introductions. I want to vibe with you. I want everybody else to be able to vibe with you. So please introduce yourself personally.
Hey, everybody. Happy to be here on the podcast today. I'm Amber Bardon. I am the founder and CEO of Parasol Alliance, as Patrick said. And I've been working in senior living for almost 20 years, so about 19 years. So I worked on the provider side for 9 years, and then I founded Parasol Alliance close to 10 years ago. So it's an industry that I'm very passionate about. I would say I really have 2 key passions with founding Parasol Alliance. One is to become the happiest IT company in the world. So to build and create and maintain our incredible workplace culture, and then to problem solve the specific technology issues in senior living from a very different perspective that implements our vision.
That already sounds dope. And I know we're going to dig more into your company and then the impact that you're making. But as we pivot, you mentioned you've been in the senior living space for 20 years. So you already made that pivot to the professional side. So tell us more about your professional life and your professional journey.
So as I mentioned, I worked for a senior living provider for 9 years, and I started out at a pretty entry-level role in the help desk. And I got promoted 6 times over the 9 years I worked there. And I worked in every department in senior living, doing projects, coming in and training nurses. And so I really learned the business from the ground up, from being side by side with every single part of senior living, as that provider had all aspects of it, and came to understand something that I think other technology providers should start paying attention to and thinking about is that the traditional view of technology has been, I like to say, the guy in khakis who comes to fix your computer. So it's just, he is my computer, my switches, my servers, things like that. And I think that there's a huge opportunity for all tech companies to think about this in a much more holistic, global way, and to think about technology from many different aspects. So business systems that are in use, the processes that support those, innovation. So all of those different aspects helped motivate me to launch my own company, and then to have my professional life really focused around a couple of core visions of how do we transform technology culture, which is actually our vision statement. And then, as I mentioned, to also provide our amazing culture and services to our clients.
Now, as a little kid, that you were going to be a CEO of a technology company?
Absolutely not. My background is in anthropology. When I was in college, I traveled around the world doing semester at sea. I did an archaeological dig in Mongolia. I lived in China for 2 years.
Wow.
So I had no idea that this was going to be my path in life.
This is like, we're talking about the pivots already. You've already done quite a bit. So I'm interested in knowing, a lot of people tap in, Amber, because we want to get inspired by you. We want to resonate and say, you know what, this person looks like me. She went through this, overcame this, and was able to reach this particular level. So here you are, you're a female CEO in the technology space, which is dominated by men, right? And you got there some type of way. So I'm interested in understanding what that hustle journey was like, those pivots, those setbacks, those challenges, those things that you needed to overcome in order to be the person that you are today?
I love talking about this topic, and I think encouraging women in leadership and being a mentor and someone that people can think about and say that that's something that I can do as a woman is really important to me. So I'm glad you brought this up. And I would say that being a female CEO and a female leader has definitely influenced the way that our company is run. And just to give you an example, when I worked for the senior living provider in Chicago, and before I started my company, before I decided to do that, I just interviewed for IT director jobs just in the Chicago area. And I have 2 kids, so that today they're 13 and 11, but at that time they were 1 and 3. And if anybody has kids that age, that they're sick all the time. And so I remember I was in the doctor's office once a week with them that 1 year that this all occurred. And so what was really important to me is to have work-life balance. So I think a lot of parents are put in a situation where you have to decide between sending your kid to daycare with a fever with some Advil or having to call into work. So those were the kinds of questions I was asking in interviews. I was saying, what's your time off policy? Can I work from home? And I had one company say they'd never interviewed a woman before. Had some responses like, we have 10 days of PTO and you can take this much time off after 3 months or whatever. And I was like, this is not what I'm looking for. And so when I decided to found Parasol Alliance, and we're actually owned by 5 of our providers or 5 of our clients, so we have a very interesting business model. That experience being fresh in my mind led me to a lot of the policies that we have. So we are 100% virtual. We have about 90 plus employees right now and growing in 30 different states. We provide boots on the ground service in 10 states and another 12 states remotely. So everybody works from home. We have unlimited time off. So you get that from day one. And there's a lot of other policies and engagement that we do because, again, my goal to be the happiest IT company is all about, I think there's a lot of different strategies and things I could talk about, but at the end of the day, it comes down to being available to listen to employees, hearing what they have to say, being transparent with the things that you need to work on and where you're at with working on those, and then being accountable. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if my direct experiences and coming in as a mom, as a woman is what has helped me want to build that type of culture. But for me, I think I want to build a place that I would want to work.
Right. That's dope. That's really dope. So right now, we know the economy, the world, we're pivoting to the RTO, return to the office. What you're telling me is you got a tech company where it's 100% of your workforce, they're remote, right? And from day one, if I'm a new employee, I get unlimited vacation. Do you see this business model changing at all, or you think it's going to stick around?
No, I don't see how it would benefit us to change it. So we do have, when I say boots on the ground in 10 states, so what that means is we do have desktop support people that live near our client locations, and they're going in person to the client site a couple days a week. So for that group, which is about maybe 30, 40 people, they get sort of a hybrid environment where they're on site with the client and then they're working from home the other days of the week. So we do, one of our engagement strategies is we do town hall meetings twice a year. And so what that means is it's myself and our head of HR, and it's mandatory. It's 100% participation. So every employee is on a Zoom call. It's small groups, less than 7 or 8 people. And we do it twice a year. We ask them, what are we doing well? What can we do better? And any other feedback. And what we've heard consistently doing this twice a year for about 6 years now is the number one thing people like about our company is our collaboration and our teamwork, which is pretty incredible considering we're a completely virtual company and most people never met each other.
That is pretty awesome right there. So you talked about all this time you spent in healthcare, you being a female. We talked about the interview and how during that interview, you found out you were one of the first women that was interviewed for this particular role. So I'm interested in knowing that, were there any specific challenges that you faced as a woman, though, to reach that CEO level that you are today?
I think the challenge would be the challenge any woman has with just inherent misogyny. And I have definitely experienced that. So I'll just give you one example. There was a client of ours and the CEO had retired. He retired a few months after this incident occurred. So he wanted to have a meeting with me shortly after the contract started. And he said in the meeting that he wanted to mentor me so that I could smile more and be nicer to people.
Oh.
So, and I've also had experiences where I've been in a room with some of my male coworkers and I'm talking about something and explaining it. And I've gotten just blank faces and they look at my male coworker who says the exact same thing I just said. And then they go, oh, so sometimes I make a joke that you need to say it in your man voice.
Right.
But I do want to say it's not all the time. It's definitely the exception more than the rule. But I've definitely had experiences like that in my past, as I'm sure most women have.
So you're a highly educated individual. We're talking about you were able to travel, see the world, do some archaeology digs in different countries and things like that. You spend all this time in senior living, and then you rose to the ranks and became a CEO of a technology company. Why technology?
I think that I'm not sure if you're familiar with predictive index, which is, we use that. So I'm a captain. So it's very much my natural instinct. And actually, I'm going to be on a predictive index podcast, which is coming out tomorrow, I think, if anybody's interested in learning more. But so it's my tendency to have a lot of accountability. So that's a very high on the predictive index captain is I like to have ownership of things. And then I also like to move at a very fast pace. And so I think those qualities that are just naturally inherent lead me to want to be a leader in situations that I'm in. So I think whatever industry I would have ended up in, I probably would have gone a similar path. It just happened that I worked at a senior living community and learned that industry and started to have a lot of passion for that. But I think my passion is around, again, things I already mentioned, is really like, how do we problem solve? I like solving problems. I like challenges and being able to come up with solutions and then execute those. I like setting vision. And I like creating a great workplace culture, which I know I've already said multiple times on this episode, but it's really important to me. And so I think those are the things that I'm excited about and I'm really passionate about. And I think you could apply that to almost any company. But senior living technology is a very exciting field. A lot of people wouldn't think that. But if you think about how many people are aging right now and the possibilities in this industry of what could occur and how we could start to monitor health and outcomes and increase longevity and healthy aging, it's actually a very exciting time.
It does sound like a very exciting time. So listen, guys, if you're just now joining us on Health Hustle Chronicles, we've connected today with Amber Bardon. She's the founder and powerhouse CEO of Parasol Alliance, a full-service managed technology provider that dominates the senior living industry. And then under her leadership, Parasol Alliance has become a game changer, consistently ranked among the top 501 managed IT service providers in the world for 6 consecutive years, including an incredible number 4 global ranking in 2022. Amber's vision, listen, relentless drive has built an award-winning culture across multi-states, a virtual workforce, earning her the prestigious title of Best and Brightest CEOs in the nation in 2024. We're just now digging into her background, everything that moves and shakes her. And so, Amber, you talked about senior living, we talked about technology, we talked about your background growing up and what you majored in and things like that. Now I want to talk more about your company. You've mentioned it, we've been talking a little bit about around the surfaces of it. Tell us more about Parasol Alliance and what exactly the impact that you're making.
It's kind of interesting. I sometimes struggle to describe what we do because we don't fit into a specific category or service line. And actually something that we want to do is do more marketing and branding effort to describe what exactly we do, because it is a completely different business model that I essentially came up with to problem solve a specific issue in senior living. So that being said, I'll describe what we actually do. So we are a services company for the senior living industry. And the best way to think about it is an outsourced IT department. So we begin every engagement with our clients with a technology assessment that looks at technology operations, all the business applications, processes around those business applications, network system security, low voltage, resident technology, telecom, and innovation. Wow. And so again, we go way beyond this traditional definition of IT, and we've completed over 120 of those assessments at more than 75 communities. And I was actually in London last week working with a client in the UK, so we have some clients there as well. Nice. And what we do is we learn all this information about what's going on at the organization today, and then we roadmap out what their future technology needs are. So that can be a standalone service, and I think we're experts in doing that. But most often that leads to us having a further partnership with our clients. So it could lead to just some consulting on projects or things like that. But most of our business is focused on full service partnerships. So we're an MSP technically, but again, we're so much more than an MSP. So I don't necessarily like to use that term. But what our clients get from our services is unlimited remote support. So we take care of all the day-to-day things like break fix, my printer doesn't work, or reset my password, all the business application support for their medical records and things like that, on-site support. And then we also, this is our differentiator, is we take the projects in the roadmap and we execute them through project management at a flat rate service.
So I guess the question that I have now, because there's a lot to go with, is there a specific size of a provider that you can work with, or are we talking about, whether they got 10,000 employees or 5 employees, or is there a sweet spot where your solutions actually fit?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we're definitely not for a smaller provider. We could be potentially, but our typical client is a CCRC right now. And so our typical client is usually about 150 employees on the small end. And then our largest have over 1,000. And so we have clients that have single sites. Our most current client we just onboarded has 24 locations. So I think size is obviously an important thing to think about. But I think the other thing is good partnership is really what's most important to us. Sure. Is that leadership support is absolutely essential to this type of relationship, that there is an understanding and a need and sometimes a lot of pain points with where tech is today. Again, not just from an infrastructure perspective, from a holistic perspective. And providers and communities that are interested in solving those problems are good partners for us.
If a provider was actually listening to this podcast today, or they listen to it tomorrow, and they're saying, this sounds interesting, what you're talking about, Parasol Alliance, how would they know specifically that they can benefit from a partnership with you?
Well, I think that starting with the technology roadmap is always a great place to start. And it's a fully delivered solution with a lot of valuable information that can be completely standalone. And so I like to think about it as probably everybody listening to this who's a provider has some sort of roadmap or plan for all of your facilities. Right. So, and no one expects to spend less money on every year when the Ziegler reports come out or the senior housing news, and you poll all the CFOs, no one says, I'm going to spend less money on IT. So when you think about the amount of time, resources, dollars that need to be spent on technology, wouldn't you want to have a plan on what you need to look out for and how to implement that, just like you would with like roof and your elevators and things like that. So, I think anybody listening to this to know if this is a good fit is think about, do you have a plan like that? And the other thing I like to discuss is technology culture. So I like to ask leadership, what is your technology culture? And is everybody in leadership on the same page? Because that's usually not the case. It's not something people think about. So technology is here. Residents are asking for more technology. Your staff are asking for more technology. It's becoming a pain point with a lot of business system sprawl and a lot of different siloed systems that don't talk to each other. And so what are you going to do about it? Do you have a plan? And is your plan to do nothing, or do you plan to make changes? And so that's a question I think that providers should ask themselves.
As we think about senior living, we know senior living has been around for quite some time. And I would say over the last 15 years, they've been trying to change the image of services that they provide, the way they provide it. We want to position senior living as this great alternative to a home-based setting, right? But technology, like you said, plays an important role, especially as the future is adopting more and more AI. So I'm interested in understanding what some of the pushback or the misconceptions that some of these providers are facing from actually using services like yours.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I just want to say before I answer that question is, I think that there is a really exciting opportunity in this industry right now to take advantage of the technology that's out there to advertise your community as a place that people can live longer because of technology. And that's all available and out there today. And so what's holding people back from that? Well, it's interesting. I think a lot of times IT support can be an emotional decision. Okay. I think it's something that's so broad and complex that there's not always an understanding at leadership of what it actually takes and what's needed to support IT. And so you think a lot of organizations who potentially have in-house staff, that's a good guy, worked there for 20 years and he's taking care of our business. And there can be some emotional attachment to that person or the services that they provide without this sort of understanding of the complexity of what you currently need to actually do to support IT and what the future possibilities are.
Oh, I love that. And I guess a good analogy with that is if you look at the American sports teams, that every few years they upgrade their team because players are getting older, injuries happen, and new technology comes to the forefront, which now they can use more and more analytics. So what you're telling me is, listen, it's okay to have that person who worked for your organization 10, 15, 20 years, but we really need to think outside the box, look at our best practices, look at where we're going, and identify tools like what you provide at Parasol Alliance that can allow us to advance, move further, reach more of our core audience of individuals to help support the senior living industry. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, I think so. And you don't necessarily have to replace those people. In a lot of our client cases, we brought them onto our team so they get to become part of a bigger team, but still service the community. Or there's other supplemental options. But again, I think that going back to what I said earlier, that you have to know what your plan is and what is your culture and vision for technology for your organization, both for your staff and residents, and then have an understanding about resources you need to actually get you there.
Listen, guys, we're talking to the best and brightest CEO in the nation in 2024. This is Amber Bardon. So we're digging more into her background. And Amber, as we pivot here, you mentioned you have 2 kids. At this point, I think they're pre-teenagers or teenagers at this point. You also mentioned that you just came back from Europe a week ago. We know that you're a CEO of a major technology company that's making waves within the industry. I'm interested in understanding, how do you go about separating your personal life from your professional life?
Yeah, it's a good question, considering that I work from home and this background is not my actual home.
It's nice though.
I wish it was my home. I think that taking time off is good. So one of the things, so we have a wellness app and our staff get points where they can make purchases through points. And one of the things that they can get points through is taking a quarterly mental wellness day. And so we encourage our staff to do that. And we also do a lot of recognition. And even though we have unlimited time off, people don't always take it. So people, if they get recognized by a coworker, they get a day off and things like that. So I think for me personally, I make sure that I do take time off. I love to solo travel. So I just got back from Portugal. Last year I went to Iceland and the Canadian Rocky Mountains. I'm going to Norway next in May.
Let's go.
So I'm a little bit of a travel addict, but I think taking that time off, I try not to work on weekends. I have to occasionally, but just having that mental break is really important. So for me personally, I think you just have to really make time for it. And I think self-care is a buzzword, but it is something that you have to do for yourself.
So how do you, in your opinion, what do you think hold people back from actually accomplishing their goals?
This is something I actually talked to one of my friends about. I think that she said something like, I'm a dreamer. Okay. And I was like, you know what? I'm not a dreamer. If I think about something I want to do, I just go and I figure it out.
Wow.
And there isn't really anything in my life that I haven't done yet that I want to do, because I just go out and accomplish that. And I think a lot of people feel like they potentially have to have it all figured out before they even start. Not, again, going back to predictive index, this is very much like my personality type, to figure it out as I go. So fly the plane as you're building it, or maybe it's the other way around. And I think that people can have fear around that. And I think that no one has done anything until they've done it for the first time. So you could look at someone like me who's been CEO for 10 years. Well, I wasn't a CEO for 10 years when I started the company. I was learning and figuring it out as I went along. So I think just have confidence in yourself, but really the most important thing is to have the right people supporting you and by your side.
Well, I like that. It's a great answer. During your journey to becoming the CEO that you are today, did you have any mentors or coaches that actually helped you, or you truly just started to map out where you wanted to go and figured it out on your own?
I've got a board. And so they were really helpful and have been helpful to me as questions came up or starting the company. So they were important in this journey. But honestly, a lot of things I figure it out. And if something doesn't make sense to me, or there's something I want to do and it's not documented or it's not been done before, I just try it and see how it goes. And also rely on my team to give feedback and to think about things from a perspective that I might not have thought about.
I want you to think back to the 8, 9, 10-year-old version of Amber when you're just sitting in your bed, you're looking up at the ceiling. What did you want to be then?
I don't know if I knew that. And I feel like there is an entire societal structure is based around picking your degree when you're 18 or 19 or something like that. And I think a lot of people don't really know what they want to do. And I think I never really had a master plan for my life. I just took the opportunities that came and figured it out as I went.
So when it's all said and done, the lights are off, you're no longer here in this world, right? What impact would you like to leave behind?
So I think a couple of things. So it's really important to me, and this is something I've been thinking a lot about, is how to get this message out there, is to really change the way we think about technology. And it goes back to everything I said earlier, so I won't repeat it, but to really embrace this idea that technology is not just your computer and all these other aspects, and how do we holistically view it? So I think that business model and that thought process is lacking. It's definitely lacking in senior living, but to help educate and change the way the world thinks about that is important to me. And we have a podcast as well called Raising Tech, and we do a lot of education around that. And then again, my other thing that's important to me is to have everybody who's worked for Parasol Alliance or come into contact with us think about what a great experience that was. So no one's going to stay at our company forever, but if they leave, I want them to look back and say, that was the best job I ever had. So I think those are my legacies.
So what advice would you give to other professionals interested in joining the hustle, either joining your organization or listening to this, right? And they're to reach that similar level as yourself. So what advice would you give that person?
Well, I think it's all about who you are, and networking is really important. And at the end of the day, humans are social creatures, and we do make decisions based on emotion and how we feel about someone. And I'm a natural introvert. So, putting myself out there is not something that was easy for me. So I think it's about who you, because that's how connections are made and that's how things get done a lot of times in the business world. But I think you also have to learn how to sell yourself. Okay. So we're on this podcast. It's been 10 years. I've been doing podcasting for a long time. And so I'm now very comfortable about talking about my journey, about my company, but I was not when I started. It's something you have to practice. And it might feel a little weird at first to talk about yourself and to sell yourself, but the more you do it, the easier it'll get.
I love that message. That's an awesome message. Thank you for sharing that. I'm interested in also knowing outside of work. I mean, because you're a busy person. We're raising kids. We have this company that supports close to 100 individuals remotely. Is there anything that you like to talk about besides work, or do you have passion projects that you work on besides the podcast and things like that?
Well, for a couple of years, I had 2 independent podcast projects I was doing. They're not active right now. So I was doing some other podcasts for a while. I'm a big reader. So I read anywhere from 2 to 5 books a week. I am a speed reader.
Wow.
People are always surprised when they hear that. And it's not like I'm reading high quality, highbrow books. A lot of it's just free. I'm very interested in history, anthropology, and politics and global affairs. So that's something I'm very interested in. And I follow that very closely. And then I mentioned travel. I'm very much a travel addict. So I'm fortunate to be able to travel a lot for work. And then I solo travel and just get out there to see the world as much as possible, because I think having an inherent sense of curiosity and wanting to learn about people not like you and visit places that are outside your comfort zone is really important as a human being.
So there's a debate, and I need you to go ahead and settle the debate here. You talked about reading 2 to 5 books a week, and you're a speed reader, which is insane already within itself. But preferred reading method, are we talking about in your hand or is it an audiobook?
Okay.
So you're still reading it. It's in your hand though. It's kind of like a book. So it's got to be in your hand for you to read it. You can't listen to it?
No, because I speed read, so I don't read every single word. So I'm skimming a lot of times. So an audiobook is way too slow for me.
Got you. That's awesome. Tell me more about this podcast. You mentioned it was called Raising Tech.
Raising Tech is our company's podcast. And so we do 2 episodes a month with technology innovators. So all kinds of different innovation and vendors and featuring our clients. And then once a month, we also do a resident exclusive. So we have a program called Tech at Home, which is providing exclusive technology support to older adults. And so we have our Tech at Home team come on. They teach classes at communities, and they do a little mini class for 20 minutes about how to use my iPhone adaptability options, how to stay safe from cybersecurity scams. And that's all available on YouTube and on our podcast platforms.
So it sounds it's more client facing than anything?
Client and resident facing. Yeah.
Got it. All right. So this has already been a dope podcast episode. We have to drop those handles. People need to find out how to get in touch with you. So please, let's start with your organization. Let's start there. How do we get in touch with Parasol Alliance?
ParasolAlliance.com would probably be the best way, or email would be info@ParasolAlliance.com.
And then what about you personally?
LinkedIn is probably where you can find me. So just my name, Amber Bardon, on LinkedIn. I'm not really on too many other social media platforms besides that one.
Got it. Listen, everybody, this has been another episode of Health Hustle Chronicles, where the grind meets growth in the world of healthcare. As you know, this ain't your typical podcast because I bring you the freshest, the livest guests from around the world. And today we were blessed with her own presence, Amber Bardon. She's the founder and powerhouse CEO of Parasol Alliance, a full-service managed technology provider that dominates the senior living industry. Under her leadership, Parasol Alliance has become a game changer, consistently ranked amongst the top 501 managed IT service providers in the world for 6 consecutive years, including the incredible number 4, you heard me right, number 4 global ranking in 2022. Amber's vision and relentless drive have built an award-winning culture across multi-state virtual workforce, earning her the prestigious title of Best and Brightest CEOs in the nation in 2024. She's not just leading a company, she's redefining what's possible in tech as well as senior living. So Amber, I'm going to turn it over to you to close us out with any parting words.
I just want to say, any providers out there, think about what I said about technology culture and how you plan to address that. And then for anyone who wants to start their own company or get into the hustle, just do it. Don't wait for the perfect day, the perfect opportunity, the perfect time. Just get it in motion and get going with it.
Thank you very much for your time, Amber.
Thank you so much for having me.